Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a truck so advanced that even today some engineers would look at it, scratch their heads, and quietly pretend they totally understood it all along. Now imagine this happening not in the future, not in the 1980s, but in 1931, when most trucks still look like angry metal boxes with wheels and ambitions of a tired donkey. And right there, in the middle of economic chaos and industrial anxiety, Germany produced something that didn't just push boundaries, it politely ignored them and drove straight through. The story begins in 1931 in Germany, at a moment when industry was balancing innovation with survival. The company behind this machine was Rumpler RuV, led by Edmund Rumpler, an Austrian-born engineer whose mind was clearly operating several decades ahead of his surroundings. This was not a man who simply designed vehicles. This was a man who questioned why vehicles were shaped the way they were in the first place. And if the answer wasn't good enough, he redesigned reality. Rumpler had already shocked the automotive world in 1921, one of the first truly aerodynamic cars. Drawing heavily from aviation principles, he understood airflow long before most engineers even considered it relevant for road vehicles. By the early 1930s, he turned his attention to commercial transport, and what he created was the Rumpler RuV 31. This was not a truck built for general cargo or farm work. No, this machine had a very specific mission: high-speed transport of newspapers between cities. In an era when information was becoming increasingly valuable, getting news from one place to another quickly meant everything. While conventional trucks struggled to maintain speeds of 50 to 60 kilometers per h-hour, Rumpler envisioned something radically different. A vehicle that could cruise at speeds previously unheard of in commercial transport. The result was not just unusual, it was almost unbelievable. Only 2 prototypes were ever built, and sadly, none survived. They were lost during World War II air raids, leaving behind no complete chassis, no engine, and no full technical documentation. Today, the RuV 31 exists only in period photographs and scattered archival references, which only adds to its almost mythical reputation among historians. While exact specifications were never fully documented, historical reconstructions consistently suggest that the RuV Senshi was powered by a VCIR engine, most likely gasoline-jan-powered. The estimated output ranged somewhere between Yaldindin and Ibaiwushishausha horsepower, which for a commercial vehicle in Ichenjo by Senshi was, let's just say, completely unreasonable in the best possible way. And then Rumpler did something that would make traditional engineers spill their coffee. He gave it front-wheel drive. Yes, front-wheel drive in a heavy commercial vehicle at a time when almost everything used rear-wheel drive with simple ladder frames. This wasn't done just to be different. It was a calculated decision inspired by aviation engineering, allowing better traction under load, reduced drivetrain losses, and more efficient packaging of components. The body itself was where things truly became revolutionary. Instead of the boxy shapes typical of trucks, the RuV 31 featured a teardrop aerodynamic form, with smooth, continuous curves flowing from the nose to the tail. The wheels were fully enclosed, reducing drag even further, and the frontal area was minimized to improve airflow. This wasn't styling for aesthetics, it was engineering driven by purpose. Suspension was likely based on leaf springs, as was standard for the era, while braking systems were either mechanical or early hydraulic setups. The wheels were large, designed to support heavy loads while maintaining stability at higher speeds. And speaking of speed, the RuV 31 was estimated to reach around 100 kilometers per h-hour. For context, that's roughly double what most trucks of the time could achieve. Fuel efficiency, thanks to the aerodynamic design, was significantly better than its contemporaries. And this is where Rumpler's vision becomes even clearer. He wasn't just building a fast truck, he was building an efficient one. A vehicle designed to move goods quickly, reliably, and with less wasted energy. Aerodynamic commercial vehicles, front-wheel drive in heavy transport, integrated body structures, these concepts were all present in this single machine. Bob, my neighbor, looked at a photo of the RuV 31 once and said, "This is exactly what aliens would design if they wanted to deliver newspapers." Honestly, Bob might be wrong about most things, but this time I'm not entirely sure. The RuV 31 wasn't just ahead of its time, it was operating on a completely different timeline altogether. Rumpler approached the vehicle as if it were an aircraft that happened to drive on roads. Every curve, every surface, every transition from front to rear was dictated by airflow rather than tradition. The teardrop shape was not a stylistic gamble. It was a calculated decision to reduce drag to an absolute minimum. In an era when most engineers were still focused on durability and simplicity, Rumpler was already chasing efficiency through aerodynamics, decades before it became a global obsession. When we compare the RuV 31 to its contemporaries, the gap is almost comical. Most trucks of the early 1930s were slow, heavy, and shaped like moving crates. They relied on simple rear-wheel drive layouts, basic frames, and engines that prioritized reliability over performance. The idea of a truck reaching 100 kilometers per h-hour was not just ambitious, it was borderline absurd. Yet Rumpler achieved it, or at least came very close, using principles that the rest of the industry would only begin to adopt decades later. The market, however, was not ready. Manufacturing a VCIR-gen-powered, aerodynamically optimized truck was far more expensive than building conventional designs. Infrastructure also played a role. Roads, logistics systems, and even regulations were not prepared for high-gen speed commercial transport. And perhaps most importantly, the industry itself was conservative. Innovation is exciting, but only when it feels safe, and the RuV 31 felt anything but safe. Bob, of course, has a different theory. He insists the project was quietly stopped because it was too efficient and would have disrupted global fuel markets. I told him the only thing he disrupts is the peace of the neighborhood. But he remains unconvinced. Now, about the price. There is no confirmed archival record of its original cost in 1931. However, considering the complexity of a VCR engine, the custom aerodynamic body, and the prototype nature of its construction, it would have been extremely expensive, far beyond the reach of standard commercial operators of the era. If such a vehicle had survived to the present day, its value would likely be in the multi-million US dollar range, comparable to one-off experimental vehicles that represent significant technological milestones. And honestly, if you ever feel like your ideas are too much or too different, just remember this truck. You might simply be living a few decades ahead of everyone else. Just maybe don't test your inventions in the garage like Timmy does.